essential to traditional Chinese medicine. So almost anybody who's trained in traditional Chinese medicine will probably use the in-principle theory. And you can use it one or all of these to come up with acupuncture points. It combines yin or yang theory. It combines internal, external, which is the location. It involves the quality of the serum, either hot or cold. It defines it as excess or deficient. And then based on all those, come up with traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis. And then you can use tongue and pulse diagnosis. And that's, you look at the surface of the tongue, and if the tongue is red or yellow, that means that there's heat in the body. If it's dry, that's a yin deficiency, and remember, yin has to do with moisture, so it's usually a moisture deficiency. If it's excess moist, that can be a yang deficiency, because yang has to do with heating up the body and warming, and when you warm something up, you're generally getting rid of moisture. It can be brick red, and that's stagnation. When we look at Mindy's dog, it's brick red. His tongue is brick red, and we'll look at my dogs and look at their tongues, and then we'll look at Mindy's dog. And so start looking at the tongues. In dogs, it's much easier than it is in horses. Horses' tongues are much more difficult to see. They're just uniformly a certain color, and if you notice a big difference, it's a big problem. Horses just aren't like dogs. They're relatively healthy animals, and I don't think have as many metabolic diseases as dogs have.
This horse's tongue is very purple because he's eating all the berries.
Oh yeah.
It's always purple.
Well, there was a situation where you wouldn't probably take that into account. And then we can feel the pulses on dogs. You feel the femoral pulse on the inside of the back legs, and you're feeling for, is it superficial? Do you just barely set your fingers on there and you can feel that pulse? Usually if it's superficial, it's rapid too. So that means an exterior and excess pulse, or it's deep and slow, and that means it's an interior or deficient issue. Then I think lastly we talk about diagnostic point theory, and those points are on the back of the dog. They're involved in the bladder meridian, and there are two lines of points, and I think I have a picture of this meridian here. They're also called backshoot points. They connect to each of the 12 major internal organs and meridians. So if there's some that are, and I'm not good at this part, I can't palpate. I can palpate acupuncture points and tell you if they're painful and hard, but I can't really tell you that they're mushy or spongy. You'll hear people that do a lot of diagnostic acupuncture describe points like that. I don't have that feel yet, and I may never have that feel. Then there's alarm points that are on the ventral aspect of the stomach, and if you press on those and the dog really reacts, then that's a pretty good indication that that organ is involved. It's much more difficult to do diagnostic point and alarm points on animals because they can be fidgety and you're not getting a clear indication of whether or not they're actually painful or if the dog's just bored. It's much easier on people because you can say, wow, does that hurt? So sensitivity may indicate an imbalance. So I think I need to do this one more time. The cat over here. There we go. Or that's a dog. That's Mojo. So this is the diagnostic association points and kind of where they are. His head is up here and his tail's right here. So when you're palpating those dogs, you have them in a... Mojo, can you stand up? Here, buddy. Stand up. Come on, stand up. Come on, stand. Stand. Get it. Get it. So baby. Stand up. He generally will just collapse. So you have him up like this, and you're just, kind of feeling down here. So you're feeling for reaction, feeling some tenseness. Sometimes the dog will turn around and look at you. Sometimes you'll feel that it's hard or firm, or like I said, cold. And I don't have a great touch for this. The best I can do is, if it's reactive, and the dog tells me it's reactive. And some dogs, like Mojo, especially when they're in demonstrations, are kind of wigged out, and they're just like, really? Are you down to me? more relaxed you can get them, the more likely they'll be to tell you that you found the spot. And as far as I know, he doesn't have any back issues. He's got shoulder issues, so he's probably not going to tell me much. And then the alarm points are down here on the bottom. And you do the same thing. You just palpate on each of them. And so what I'm trying to do, if I find a reactive spot, I try to see how repeatable it is. I'll go back over it and see if I consistently get a response, then I know that it's probably a problem. So, sorry. All right. Your neck. Okay, so that was the association points. Okay. And those are the diagnostic alarm points. Those are actually not, some of these are on the side. They follow the rib cage as it goes up. But these are actually on the very midline on the bottom. So let's say we're going to work a dog up for arthritis. So Western medicine, pretty much, this is expanded. I wrote this talk, I think in 07 maybe, 06 or 07, and this has changed already because they're doing more things now. They're realizing that things like omega fatty acids are anti-inflammatory, so they've expanded what Western medicine is using. They're much more likely to prescribe glucosamine and chondroitin now that they never used to do, yucca, things like that. So it's changing. We know that this stuff helps. In traditional Chinese medicine, arthritis is called B syndrome, and it includes diseases like degenerative joint disease, disc disease, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, even certain ligament and tendon issues can be called B syndrome. B syndrome is subcategorized into B wind, B cold, B damp, B heat, B bony. So just for arthritis issues, this is the different kinds of arthritis, and each of these dogs would be treated with something different if it was B wind. And let's see if I talk about that. Okay, so for B wind, you would see a dog that gets worse with cold, damp, and windy days. Cold, damp, windy days, that dog would be noticeably worse than it would be on other days, dry, hot days, or whatever. So it has a seasonal influence, arthritis does. And you might hear people say that they know the weather's changing because their joints hurt. So depending on what weather makes it change would help me decide what herbs and points I use to treat that kind of arthritis. So wind obstructs qi flow and blood in muscles, and so you can get sore muscles. It usually has a rapid onset and the pain wanders. So they might be lame in one leg one time and another leg another time the next time this weather pattern comes up. So when you look at their tongue, the tongue is usually slight, so it's a kind of a thin tongue. It's not a big flat tongue. It's usually pale. Sometimes it has a coating, and it's usually a white coating. So everybody stick your tongue out and look at each other's tongues and how different they are. And when you're sick next time, look at your tongue in the mirror because it will tell you a lot. If you have a yellow coating back on the back of your tongue, that's toxic heat, that's infection. That you usually see that when you have a tonsillitis or an upper respiratory tract infection. I have a really bad spleen qi deficiency, and you'll see that my tongue is kind of bloated and it has my teeth imprints on the side, which tells you that your tongue is thick. And you see the scallops on the side. So my organ, my weakest organ that I need to keep on top of all the time is my spleen. The spleen digests and transforms food, so if I eat junk food, it pushes me over the edge. If I eat or drink a lot of sugar, that's bad for my spleen. So anyway, But that's my organ that I'm constantly having to tonify and take care of. So the pulse on this dog would be superficial, which means that you could put your hand just barely on the inside of the leg and you would feel it floating. I'm not sure I really felt a floating pulse. The only thing I could tell you that it probably differs from a superficial rapid pulse, because this pulse, although it may be superficial, it might be, you feel it good for a few beats, and then another few beats, you're just like, where did it go? That sort of thing. That's what I imagine floating to be, but no one's actually, that's the hard part about tongue and pulse, is because it's kind of subjective until you've had somebody teach it to you and know exactly what it feels like. Tongue is much easier because you can see it. The pulse you can't see, but you can feel it. But I have something that I'm going to start doing is get, at this meeting that I was at last week, there was a cardiologist who's an endurance rider, and she uses the equine heart monitors on animals, and you can, if I'm not mistaken, I think you can hear that pulse. Or maybe I'm mistaken, maybe you could just get a pulse rate. But some way, if you can hear that pulse, I think you could take pulse characterization to a whole nother level. Anyway, let's do that research. So the treatment would be to eliminate the wind, invigorate the channels, eliminate cold, disperse damp. And the acupuncture points that I would pick are gallbladder 20, eliminate wind, and clear the exterior. That's one I'm going to use on Mindy's dog, because coughing is a wind problem. So bladder 17, which is on the bladder meridian back here, that invigorates and activates blood, and spleen 10 invigorates, let's put that wrong, and it activates blood, and that's, liver 3 then would invigorate chi to eliminate stagnation and wind. That's probably what I should do in Mindy's dog, although it wasn't in my original research. So, and then I might take this herbal formula, which would do all the same things. So, traditional Chinese medicine, if you had to break it down into percentages of what you would use, 60% of all acupuncture cases get herbs, and only 40% of the time do you use acupuncture. So not always are you going to use both acupuncture and Chinese herbs. Most of the time you're going to use herbs, because that's something you're going to do every day. And depending on the situation that you're treating, depends on how frequent you would do acupuncture. So this is an example of Sneakers, a 9-year-old female Doberman, and I'm trying to remember what we were doing acupuncture on her for. I think she had some urinary incontinence issues. So the neurophysiologic explanation, the interest in it and the research really started in the area of treating pain, but obviously you can treat a lot of other stuff like infertility, and that Dobie had some urinary incontinence. But all the basis of the research is done in the pain area. And so the focus was on the points in the neuroendocrine system. So when you acupuncture a point, we want to measure blood and see what it changed, like the neurohormones